What's up everybody and welcome to Risky Bitness. When I was growing up, the Super Nintendo was my go-to console. I spent countless evenings and weekends playing all sorts of games, from platformers to beat-em-ups and everything in between. Today, I would like to talk about my picks for the top 25 Super Nintendo games. The Super Nintendo represents, for me, the absolute pinnacle of Nintendo's creativity and ambition, with groundbreaking titles coming fast and furious throughout its life cycle. I did my best to put this one in order, but these games are so great that it's really difficult to place them, so take the order with a grain of salt. Without any further ado, let's get down to Bitness. Number 25, Gradius 3. This follow-up to the popular Gradius arcade series could only be found in Japanese arcades up until 1991. When Vic Viper blazed his way onto the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Not only is this an excellent arcade conversion, but it's a shoot-'em-up experience unlike anything else you could play at the time. Gradius 3 is famous not only for its fun and frantic gameplay, but also for its unrelenting difficulty. Destroy the core. Number 24, Secret of Mana. I was a huge fan of RPGs, but I almost totally missed this one, until my friend Bill told me about it. And I was really glad that I tried it, because after a few minutes I was totally hooked. This is one of the best action RPGs on the SNES, with beautiful colors and an excellent soundtrack, not to mention an entrancing fantasy story that takes you on a magical adventure like only 1990 Square could deliver. Number 23, Mortal Kombat 2. Today we have many ways to bring the arcade experience home. But in 1994, our best bet was to get the home port for our consoles. This is an excellent port of MK2 that is almost completely faithful to the arcade experience. When Nintendo of America finally decided to loosen up their family-friendly policies and let parents decide what was appropriate for their kids, the result was one of the all-time greatest bloodbaths in video game history. Number 22, Super Adventure Island. You might be a little surprised to see this game on this list. It wasn't really a huge hit, but this 16-bit reimagining of the classic Wonder Boy reskin is one of the most wholesome and fun adventures you can have on the SNES. Number 21, Final Fantasy V. Not released outside of Japan until the following console generation, Final Fantasy V is a gem that many of us missed out on at the time. It's a shame because the job system in this game is a lot of fun, and the Grand Fantasy Adventure is one of the best in the history of Square. Number 20, Knights of the Round. Capcom's fairy tale beat-em-up follows Arthur and his knights as they battle to find the Holy Grail. While not an arcade-perfect conversion, it's pretty darn close. Number 19, Final Fight. Speaking of Capcom arcade conversions, this infamous port gets a lot of flack these days, but is still fondly remembered by those of us who had no alternatives. While this heavily censored conversion is missing a beloved character, it's as close to the arcade classic as SNES owners could get at the time. I came home from Blockbuster with this game more than once. Number 18, ActRaiser. While this game has a somewhat mixed reputation, it remains a unique and exciting entry in the SNES library. The challenging action platforming sections are broken up by a SimCity style game in which you have to help the cities build. Number 17, Final Fantasy II, also known as Final Fantasy IV. One of my favorite games of all time. I loved the original Final Fantasy and I was ecstatic when this came out. I rented it from Blockbuster 100 times before my parents finally got it for me for, I think, my birthday. I even leveled my whole team to 99 at the end because I loved the game so much. Cecil's journey of redemption from treacherous Dark Knight to valiant Paladin really struck a chord with me as a young man, and inspired me to always try and do the right thing. As a side note, this is one of the few games I remember having a TV spot that wasn't really a huge popular game at the time. Number 16, Contra 3. Definitely one of the most popular titles on the console. Contra 3 is legendary for its high level of fair difficulty. The difficulty isn't all Contra 3 has to offer. It's also a masterclass in design for a run-and-gun action game and absolutely the best of its kind on the SNES. Number 15, Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars. Taking Nintendo's most iconic franchise and turning it into an RPG must have been one of the most challenging tasks Squaresoft ever took on. The result speaks for itself. Not only was it groundbreaking with its graphics and 3D platforming elements, but also created a fun and rewarding system for turn-based battles that has never been outdone. Number 14, Mega Man X. As a rule, I'm not a huge Mega Man fan. While the games are a lot of fun, they're just way too hard for me. Mega Man X, however, is an exception. It's a hard game, sure, but it feels much more balanced, and the added element of hunting down all of X's enhancements brings a new dimension to the gameplay. Number 13, Super Mario All-Stars. This one might be cheating just a little since this is really a collection of NES games, but the upgrades to the graphics and sound make these already fantastic titles even better. The inclusion of the Japan-only lost levels is the icing on the cake to make this a must-have title. This was also a pack-in, with later editions of the SNES, and could be received with a mail-in order. Number 12, Super Mario World. Yes, you can get this on the same cartridge with All-Stars, but I think it deserves its own slot. Possibly the best pack-in title ever, Super Mario World has a tremendous number of levels and tons of secrets, not to mention some excellent design in terms of platforming. If you bought a brand new Super Nintendo set back in 1991, you definitely got your money's worth with this title alone. When I got my Super Nintendo, for Christmas of 1991, this was the only game I had for a while, but I absolutely played the heck out of it and I really enjoyed it a lot, and I still like it to this day. Number 11, Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. I can take or leave any Zelda game that came after, but there's no denying that A Link to the Past is a prime example of what an adventure game should be. With a wonderful campaign and tons of enemies, weapons, items, and dungeons to explore, Legend of Zelda brought the franchise into the 16-bit era with a bang, taking everything that was great about the original NES title to the next level. Number 10, Chrono Trigger. One of the most beloved RPGs of its era, Chrono Trigger was groundbreaking. Including enemies you can see and a complex story with branching paths and multiple endings, team-up attacks, and probably the most charm in an RPG up until the following console generation, Square forever elevated their game with this title. Number 9, Donkey Kong Country. Nintendo and Rare broke new ground and took the SNES's graphics into a whole new dimension with Donkey Kong Country. The gimmick of the graphics alone would have been enough to make DKC a standout title, but Nintendo wasn't content to create a feast for our eyes. Every aspect of Donkey Kong Country, from the platforming action to the music and sound effects, is expertly put together. It's a true powerhouse of a game. Number 8, X-Men: Mutant Apocalypse. As a kid in the 90s, I was stoked that an X-Men game was finally coming to the Super Nintendo. After a disappointing Spider-Man and X-Men game left a bad taste in our mouths during the height of the comic book boom, Capcom came through with flying colors by creating a unique and fun experience. Our favorite mutants are all here and handled in a way that is respectful to the source material. The story is lifted directly from the pages of the most popular superheroes of the time. A challenging game and a slam dunk in every way, Mutant Apocalypse is the X-Men game the Genesis wishes it had. Number 7, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4: Turtles in Time. The crown jewel of arcade beat-em-ups on the SNES, this is a rare case where the console port improves on every element of the arcade experience. Using the Super Nintendo's powerful Mode 7 technology, Turtles in Time adds impressive features like hurling your foes directly at the camera. This adventure through history is full of humor and heart and is an absolute blast to play with a friend. Number 6, Super Ghouls and Ghosts. I've talked a lot about challenging games on this list, and this might be the hardest one yet. True to form, Super Ghouls and Ghosts isn't just hard, it's also an excellent game. Fantastic platforming design combined with great character and monster designs gives this game tons of charm and makes for a great experience, even if you do like I did and throw your controller against the wall a few times. I may have broken more than one controller playing this game. A fun story, I was playing this game today because my 4-year-old wanted to see it because he loves monsters and ghosts and all those things. And he learned a few new words. Number 5, Super Castlevania 4. If you like games where you fight with ghouls, ghosts, spooks, and specters, there's no doubt you're a Castlevania fan. And Super Castlevania 4 just might be the best game in the entire franchise and a shoo-in for the top 3 SNES games of all time. The variety of enemies and levels is topped off with graphic effects that were unheard of at the time, making this a true legend of the 16-bit gaming era. Number 4. Street Fighter II Turbo. You can play Street Fighter II and even Street Fighter Alpha 2 on the SNES, but somehow Turbo just takes the cake as the best fighting game on the platform. Maybe it's a little bit of the nostalgia for me of getting this game for Christmas and spending many Friday nights bound and determined to defeat M. Bison with every single character. I even recorded the various endings on VHS. I guess it's no wonder I started a YouTube channel. Number 3. Super Punch-Out! Punch-Out is one of my all-time favorite games, and while this sequel doesn't have quite the charm of its predecessor, it's nevertheless an excellent game that improves on the formula by adding more challenging opponents with different patterns and ways to defeat them. It also allows the player to take on the enemies one division at a time and return to old opponents to beat their old scores. Number 2. Super Metroid. Arguably the best game on the Super Nintendo and possibly one of the best games ever made, Super Metroid is an astonishing adventure through a hostile planet in search of the Mother Brain, the evil space pirate behind the resurrection of the Metroids. Control the bounty hunter Samus Aran and collect power-ups to unlock new areas of the map, and ultimately destroy the colony once and for all. The game picks up right after Metroid 2 Return of Samus. Look no further for the definitive SNES experience. Well, number 1. Final Fantasy III, also known as Final Fantasy VI. While some may disagree, I have to say wholeheartedly that this is, in my opinion, the best game on the SNES. Everything in this game breaks new ground not just for RPGs, but for video games as a whole. The deep and well-written characters, the large and fantastic world, the heart-wrenching story, it's all a glimpse into the massive blockbusters that would come from Square over the next few years, and represents the apex of creativity, design, music, and graphics on the console. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this list. I changed things up a little bit with this episode because I was just kind of getting bored of making the videos that I've been making them up until now. But let me know what you think of this new format in the comments below. A little bit of background about me. I got the Super Nintendo. It was the only thing I wanted for Christmas of 1991. And I played that thing all the way up until the PlayStation came out. It was probably the thing I spent the most time doing as a kid. I was just really into video games. So all these games, they hold a really special place in my heart. Some of them more so than others, but that system, that console to me is always going to be synonymous with my childhood. So if you're like me and you love this console, I'm sure you like this list. And if you're someone new to Super Nintendo and you were looking for some games to play, I hope I helped you find them. Thank you, and until next time, game over.